Welcome back, Sebastian here. So time for my review for the qualifying for the 2023 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So we had a very mixed up grid in FP3 earlier in the day. So that was something that meant that there was a lot of uncertainty going into qualifying. So at the start of qualifying, there was quite a delay before the first runs. The teams trying to optimize when exactly they did their runs. Sargent had his time deleted on his first lap for track limits, and this would be unfortunately a theme with Sargent today. And Hulkenberg also deleted for that first run. So after the first runs in Q1, the 5 drivers in the drop zone were Hulkenberg, Zhou, Sargent, Magnussen, and Gasly. After those first runs, the gap between Verstappen in first and Magnussen, who was the last driver to set time, was only 1.493 seconds. So very, very tight, so showing just how tight this qualifying session would be. Albon then comes over the radio saying that the track evolution is around 0.4 of a second, is what the expected track evo to be for that second run in Q1. Track positioning would be very important there. Williams decided to run both cars in the gap, kind of in that kind of lull around with 4 to 5 minutes to go. And they go second and fourth, 1 second, Sargent fourth, before Sargent's lap is deleted again for track limits. So both of his laps in qualifying deleted, he ends up with no time. So not a great start for his final qualifying session of the season. And with questions swirling about his seat for next year and maybe Frederick Vesti being in the frame for that Williams seat, not a great way to start the weekend for Sargent. We get to the final runs of Q1, and the 5 drivers who were knocked out were Sainz, shock knockout for the Ferrari driver, Magnussen, Bottas, Zhou, and of course Sargent. The gap, again, want to kind of emphasize the gap between Sainz and Verstappen was 0.578, so about half a second, so very, very close between P1 and P16. Into Q2 we go, and some drivers have opted to start. They opted to do the first run of Q2 on used tires because they used too many tires through the session. Albon and Tsunoda were among this group, and I think most of them opted for this strategy. And of course, running used tires for the second run in Q2. Ocon, Hulkenberg, Albon, Gasly, and Ricciardo were the 5 drivers in the drop zone after the first runs. Norris notably was only 0.18 off of Verstappen on used tires, and Hulkenberg's time was deleted. Albon again decides to run in the gap, and he goes P5. Your 5 drivers who would be knocked out at the end of Q2 were Hamilton, Ocon, Stroll, Albon, and Ricciardo. So Albon, despite being P5 after his second run, ends up P14 knocked out, showing again pretty strong track evolution. And Hamilton, a bit of a surprise to be knocked out, but that being said, he looked quite far off of Russell's pace all weekend. And I think to make matters worse for Hamilton, he was knocked out of that position by Russell. Russell was P11, Hamilton was P10, and Russell got himself up into Q3. Into Q3 we go, and a lot of drivers were running on a similar tire strategy to the start of Q2. So used tires for the first run, new tires for the second run. Verstappen sets the benchmark of he had the luxury of basically having fresh tires on whatever run he wanted because he only needed 1 run in Q1 and Q2. So his benchmark 123.445, Norris second, 0.371 off, and Piastri's third, 0.504 off. So pretty good results for the 2 McLarens in that first run. Second run, just following the sector times in comparison to Verstappen's benchmark. Norris, first sector, ahead by 0.075. Piastri also ahead by 0.05. So the McLaren's gaining time over Verstappen in sector 1. When we get to sector 2, they both lose time though. Norris plus 0.118, Piastri 0.149. And then, unfortunately for Norris, in the final sector, turn 13, I think, turn 14, I believe, he has a massive oversteer, massive slide, and it completely kills his lap. There was basically no hope of him basically ever improving in that lap. Piastri, though, kept it somewhat clean and doesn't improve his time, and he would move up to what was at the time P2, 0.337. So again, losing a bit of time to Verstappen in Sector 3. Leclerc would then eventually go P2, 0.139 off, pretty close to Verstappen's benchmark. Verstappen can't improve his time. Perez improves up to P6, I believe, but has his time deleted for track limits. Last thing as well, right at the end, after the session finished, they announced that Gasly Piastri would be under investigation for impeding. They just showed the replay. It looked like Piastri was the one who did the impeding, so that may be a grid drop, but it was around like turn 3 basically, so we'll see what the stewards decide. So looking at the grid for tomorrow's race, final Grand Prix of the season, Verstappen on pole, Leclerc second, kind of the opposite of what we've been used to this recently with Leclerc pole, Verstappen second. Maybe it'll result in a Leclerc win, who knows. Piastri third for now, fourth Russell, fifth Norris, sixth Noda, great result for him in the AlphaTauri, seventh Alonso, eighth Hulkenberg, great result in the Haas, ninth Perez, 10th Gasly, 11th Hamilton, 12th Ocon, 13th Stroll, 14th Albon, 15th Ricciardo, 16th Sainz, 17th Magnussen, 18th Bottas, 19th Show, and 20th Sargent. So 3 talking points, I think. One, Red Bull setup. They had looked not particularly good through any of the practice sessions, so I'm very, very surprised that they were this good. In qualifying, Verstappen looked completely under control, completely relaxed. We needed one run in Q1 and Q2. So, great work by Red Bull to nail that setup. Second, I'm going to go with Sargent track limits. So, I think the Sargent's track limits, having it happen twice on both of his runs in Q1, I think will be talked about, especially since he doesn't have a contract for next year. Final thing I think we'll talk about, something that I think is especially noticeable is the mixed up grid. Let's see, so in the top 10 alone, you have an Alpine, a Red Bull, a Haas, an Aston Martin, an AlphaTauri, a McLaren, Mercedes, and a Ferrari. So you have 8 teams in the top 10. Only the Williams and the Alfa Romeo not in the top 10. So, that's something that we don't see very often in Formula 1, which I think is definitely good and healthy for the sport. So, that's all for my review of qualifying for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Looking forward to tomorrow's Grand Prix. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.